If you are struggling to see consistent results with your email marketing strategy, then this is the place you need to start. What's up, guys? My name's Skylar. I'm the founder of a retention agency called Influx Labs. And today I'm going to show you exactly step-by-step how to do a detailed audit of your Klaviyo account. So you can go in, identify the weak points of your email marketing strategy, and actually create a checklist to go in and improve these weak points so that you can end up generating up to 40% of your overall store revenue from Klaviyo email marketing. The very first step to solving the problems within your email marketing strategy is knowing that they exist, right? That's why the very first thing that we do every time we get a new e-com client is an in-depth Klaviyo or whatever email service provider they're using audit. So a detailed account audit allows us to accomplish three very vital things, right? One, it helps us discover any weak points or technical issues that they may have in their retention strategy, email marketing, as well as SMS. Two, it allows us to detail exact issues from top to bottom on a document with pictures for reference so they can see exactly what is wrong with their actual Klaviyo strategy and take moves to improve it. Three, it allows us to be able to come up with a fully custom plan on how to fix the issues that you have within your email marketing strategy using these two discovery steps above. A full account audit is honestly the only way that you can diagnose and even begin to fix the problems that you have with your email marketing strategy. And that's why I'm making this video, to show you exactly how to perform your very own Klaviyo account audit so that you can do this for your brand today and find out the weak points, fix them, and have your emails and SMS texts printing money as soon as possible. So before we get into the actual audit, there is a prerequisite audit step that we always take when we're looking into a e-com brand's account. And that's simply checking to make sure that it is technically integrated with Klaviyo properly. So this may seem obvious, but you'd actually be surprised how many account audits we've done where they just don't have Klaviyo and Shopify or Klaviyo and their HTML site linked together properly. And because of that, they're actually missing out on a lot of features that would make their email marketing much more effective, and they're kind of playing with a handicap. So what I'm going to do is at the end of this video, I'm actually going to give you this whole document that we're going to go over. And in here, I'm including a link to Klaviyo's own tutorial on how to make sure that you are integrated properly in here so that you can use this source kind of as a reference, make sure that your account is actually integrated properly. And yeah, this is the first and most obvious thing that we check when we are starting an account audit. The first thing that we're going to take a look at when it comes to the Klaviyo account audit is making sure that your lists and segmentation is actually set up properly. So I'm sure you know the difference between a list and a segment if you're watching this video, but just in case, I think it's important to make the distinction. So an email list is essentially a collection of people's email addresses that are grouped under an identifiable label. So you can add people to a list manually, or they can join the list through your sign-up form. But essentially a list is just static and it's not going to really change unless they join in those two ways mentioned. Whereas a segment is actually defined by a set of conditions rather than a fixed list of people. So basically a segment will grow as new people meet whatever conditions you set up for the segment, and it will shrink as they no longer meet these conditions. So we're going to take a look to make sure your email list is set up properly and collecting, and we're also going to make sure that you have all of the proper segmentation set up. So here's what you need to check for in the account that you're auditing when it comes to lists and segments. When it comes to email lists, every single Klaviyo account should have a primary email list that is linked to whatever sign-up forms you have on your website. And this is going to be the place where you send all of your subscribers, right? So if you do not have an email list that is connected to the sign-up forms on your website, that is something that is a red flag, and that's something that immediately needs to get fixed, right? So if you're doing an audit of your account and you see, there's multiple lists or the sign-up forms are linked to the wrong place, this needs to be corrected. When it comes to segmentation, every single Klaviyo account should have 6 main email segments that you're sending to. Let's quickly run through all 6. 1, the engaged segment. This is essentially a segment of the people that are the most engaged on your website and on your email list that you're going to send the bulk of your email campaigns to. And this is going to be a 60 or 90-day engaged that you should be checking to make sure is set up. The next is a VIP segment, where it's going to be a list of the people that are considered VIPs, right? The people who have spent a certain amount of money or bought a certain amount of times, you're going to have them separated on their own segment. The next is a not suppressed segment, which is very simple. It's just people who can still receive emails because they aren't suppressed profiles. Next is a bounced segment. So this is going to be, the people you send emails to that bounce because they have, either a false email address or it's just not delivering to them properly. Next is a past purchaser segment, which is a group of people who have bought in the past. And lastly, the sixth is a window shoppers segment, which is going to be the people who have kind of been browsing your products without purchasing. And these are the people who are really the most likely to buy on your entire list. These are the 6 segments that you need to have set up on your Klaviyo account or whatever email service provider you have. And if any of these 6 segments are missing, this shows improper segmentation and this should be a red flag to you, right? So most brands have some of these segments set up when we do audits, but we rarely see all 6. And so to absolutely maximize the effectiveness of your email marketing strategy, you're going to want to have all 6 of these segments. So here's kind of an example of something that we'll usually see. And this might be similar to what your account looks like, where you'll just have, a couple of the key segments, right? A lot of people have like a repeat purchasers or VIP buyers, but most don't have all 6 core segments set up. So make sure when you're going through your audit, you see all 6 of these, have them set up, or list them as something that needs to be taken care of. The last thing that you're going to look for in the lists and segments category when you're doing your Klaviyo account audit is your actual list growth. You need to look at the rate that your email list is growing in subscribers, because this is going to give you some valuable information on, what you may be doing right or wrong. So anything below 1 to 3% increase of subscribers per month means that there is likely one of the below problems with your actual growth in your actual email list. So the first problem that is likely if you are having growth less than 1 to 3% per month is a low converting sign-up form. So a healthy sign-up rate is anywhere between 3 to 5%, and a great pop-up sign-up form on your website can convert as much as 10% of your website traffic onto your email list. So I'm going to show you an example of this in case you don't have a good pop-up sign-up form set up for your e-com store. This is actually an example from Gymshark, and I'm sure this one is converting probably like 8 to 10% of their website traffic onto their email list. So this is a really good example, right? They have 10% off here, kind of the big offer, and then your next order when you sign up, email and SMS. So they give you this offer in big, bold headline and subheader, and then it's very low friction. They just ask for your email address, and then you can also put in your gender if it's relevant to you because they sell, unisex clothing. So this needs to be set up, right? If your list isn't growing at a rate between 1 to 3% per month, then you likely have a low converting sign-up form that doesn't look like this one, and that needs to be corrected. The second reason that you could have list growth lower than this is a high unsubscribe rate. So when we're doing the audit, we want to also look at, the rate at which people are unsubscribing. A healthy unsubscribe rate to look for is around 0.5% or below. And this is just, to make sure that the list continues to grow at 1 to 3%. So high unsubscribes can have several causes. And, this is going to be something that you identify by looking at your personal Klaviyo account. But the most common cause of high unsubscribe rate is just bad, kind of spammy, promo heavy emails that don't provide a lot of value and aren't very content heavy. So we'll go over this a little bit later when we get into email campaigns. But when you're doing your audit, make sure that you go through, you look at the rate that the list is actually growing at. And if it's not growing higher than 1%, then look into these 2 reasons, because they're the 2 most common reasons that we see that a list isn't growing at the rate that it should be. After we've looked into the lists and segmentation and list growth, we move on to audit step 2, and we take a look at your flows or your automations. So there are 9 core flows that e-com brands generally need to have set up if they want to generate between 30 and 40% of their overall revenue from email. So what we'll do when we do an account audit, and what you should do within your own Klaviyo account, is check and make sure all 9 of the core flows are set up. So I'll run you through the 9 core flows. You have 1, the welcome flow, or the sign up automation, which is what's going to trigger when people sign up to your list. 2, the abandoned cart, which is just like what it sounds like. Someone adds something to their cart on your website and then abandons it. This is going to trigger. In Klaviyo, this is the most common thing that I will see people have messed up when we actually do audits. So what you need to do if you have an abandoned cart set up is, as soon as possible, you can even, tab out of this video and go check for yourself right now, because I'd say there's a 60% chance this is true with your account. On your abandoned cart, you need to make sure that the flow trigger is added to cart and not checkout abandoned, right? So for whatever reason, the default trigger that you're going to have on the Klaviyo abandoned cart is actually going to be checkout abandoned, which is an abandoned checkout email and not a true abandoned cart. So if this is true for your account, when you're doing the audit, you check and you see that your abandoned cart email doesn't have the added to cart trigger and it has the checkout abandoned trigger, what you need to do is go to Klaviyo's tutorial. And there's actually a snippet of code that you're going to need to put into your website to be able to add this added to cart trigger and have a true abandoned cart. So that's something very common that we'll see in the audits of the automations. Make sure that you have this set up properly. So 2, abandoned cart with the added to cart trigger. 3, the abandoned checkout. So you're going to have a separate abandoned cart and abandoned checkout flow because this is 2 different steps in the funnel, right? So these are both important to have set up at different levels. And the abandoned checkout trigger is the checkout abandoned. So make sure that that is set up when you're doing the audit. Flow number 4 is the abandoned browse, which is going to trigger when someone comes to your website and looks at a specific product and then leaves. Important one to have set up to reduce website churn. Another is abandoned site, which is just a step lower in the funnel than the abandoned browse. Someone comes to your website without looking at a product and leaves. Again, get them back to the website. Important one to have set up. Post-purchase, this is going to include things like the review request, customer thank you, and cross-sells or upsells when someone purchases. Number 7, win back. When someone has purchased in the past, hasn't purchased in a long time, they get a series of emails that allows them to kind of be won back and purchase again. That's number 7. Number 8, sunset unengaged, or the breakup series. This is what you're going to send people who are unengaged and haven't interacted in a long time to try to either 1, get them to, interact with your brand again. And if they don't, 2, cut them from the list. Important one to have set up for the health of your email list. And number 9, the VIP flow. So this is set up for, VIP purchasers to give them kind of exclusive offers within the flow. As for any of these flows that you may have set up and active, here's what you should actually look for to make sure that these flows are optimized for performance. So this is kind of our high performing flow checklist. And generally, just by glancing at these 3 things, we can tell whether or not the flows are going to be performing the way that they should. So the first is that each flow is 5 to 7 emails in length, or for the shorter ones, they may be 2 to 3 emails long. So if you have flows, or when you're doing your audit, you see flows that are set up with like 1 to 2 emails, odds are these aren't going to perform very well because they're going to need a lot more time to actually get the point across and be as effective as they can be. So general rule of thumb, the welcome flow is usually like 5 to 7 emails in length. The abandoned cart is usually 2 to 3 in length. Abandoned checkout, 2 to 3 in length. Abandoned browse, 2 to 3 in length. Site, 2 to 3 in length. Post-purchase, like 3 to 5 in length. Win back, 3 to 5 in length. The sunset unengaged is kind of the one exception where it can be 1 to 2. And the VIP flow would be like 3 to 5. So if these flows tend to be very short, then odds are they're not performing really well. And this is a big reason. So that's number 1. Number 2 is that split tests are not active on each flow. If you're doing your audit and you see that these flows aren't split testing things like subject lines, time delays, and designs, then the odds are they don't have optimal results because they haven't really been tested against things that could maybe be performing better. So that's another thing to check for. Make sure that split tests are active on all 9 of these core email flows. And number 3 is more so about performance, but an easy way to check and see if these are performing, up to par is if they have open rates of 20% and higher, click click-through rates of 3 to 5% or higher, and conversion rates of 2 to 3 or higher. These are generally performing really well. And these are some, basic data standards that you should go by to see whether or not, these flows are performing at a high rate. If you don't see all 9 of these core email flows when you're doing your account audit, then you have some room for improvement in the automation category, and you can go ahead and start to set up these flows that you are missing. After you've made sure that all 9 of your core flows are set up, we move to audit step 3, which is email campaigns. There are a few things that we look for and a few ways that we can tell whether or not an email campaign is optimized for conversions. And the very first is sending cadence. A healthy email list sends 2 to 3 emails per week or 10 to 12 emails per month. This is the ideal sending cadence that we've found to make sure that your list is staying engaged and to make sure that these emails are converting at a high rate. You're going to want to be sending this much. I know we'll get usually some pushback when we tell people we want to send this frequently, but the answer to people feeling like they don't want to spam their list is just to send better content within their emails. So yeah, the ideal sending cadence for campaigns is about 2 to 3 per week, and you can even do about 3 to 4 as long as your campaigns are content-based and valuable. That is one. Make sure that your sending cadence is 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 emails per week. The second thing that we look for in kind of this checklist to make sure that the campaigns are doing well is the content to promotion ratio. So like we just mentioned above, typically what we'll do is 5 to 7 content emails for every single promotion email that we run, right? We've even done 10 to 1 with some brands, or some brands don't run discounts at all because they feel like it devalues their brand. But the emails can still perform really, really well. So these content emails will keep the list engaged and make the promos hit that much harder because, they're more of a rare occurrence. And so people take advantage of them more when they happen. So if a brand, your brand, the brand being audited, is using mostly promo emails, it tends to devalue the emails and cause unsubscribes because people feel like they're just getting hit with advertisements over and over again. That's number 2. Number 3 on this checklist is the actual email design and copy. So a few things within the email design that we'll check for really quickly in audits is making sure that the hero image contains the headline and call to action. This is called being above the fold. So basically, when you open an email, you want to have all of the information there before you scroll. Right? Most people open emails and they won't even scroll. So if the information isn't above the fold, being the headline and the call to action, the button that they can click, odds are they're not going to scroll, they're not even going to read anymore, and they're going to click away and go on with their day. So that is the single most important visual aspect within the design, is to make sure that these things are visually present as soon as someone opens your email without needing to scroll. There's a lot more detail in determining whether an email design is, optimized or not. But generally, that is the single biggest thing that you're going to need to focus on, is making sure that is happening within your emails. So as for the copy, it should really just accomplish 3 things. So we'll look for these 3 things to kind of tell you whether or not this email copy is going to be successful or not. It's really not rocket science, but it needs to accomplish 3 things, which is grab attention immediately, deliver an interesting message briefly, and derive one singular action. Basically, people don't want to read tons and tons of paragraphs of text within the emails. So if you can just kind of grab someone's attention, give them all the information they need, and then drive them to take an action, this is going to be successful email copy. And so if we look and see, a bunch of paragraphs of text that is very uninteresting, or just, beating around the bush and not getting to the topic, this is a red flag that we'll see within, email copy that probably isn't performing very well when we do, an audit. So that's very important in the email and copy to take a look at very quickly. Email 4 is just email deliverability. So this is massive, because it doesn't matter how good an email campaign is if it's not actually getting into people's inboxes, and if it's just going straight to their promotion or, much worse, spam tab. So this has a massive impact on overall campaign performance. And if you're seeing these 3 things, open rates lower than 20%, emails frequently landing in spam when you send them, or the emails are bouncing often. This means you have poor email deliverability, and this needs to be, addressed within the actual email campaigns and flows. This is something that is wrong and is affecting, the effectiveness of your email marketing overall. To give you a better feel for what to look for visually within these email campaigns when you're doing your audit, here are some examples of some high converting campaigns that we've made for a recent client of ours. So the one right here is kind of the odd one out, and we'll go over why it's still effective, but this is generally what we're doing. So you can see right here, this is a promotion email, and we have everything above the fold, right? So you have the headline, the subheader, and the large call to action right here. Father's Day gifts on time. We'll get it there. Shop 15% off. They don't need to scroll at all, right? The rest of this email is kind of irrelevant for anyone that doesn't want to read, and they know exactly what they're getting right here. For this one, this is just not really selling anything. This was for their welcome flow. So it's just kind of telling their story, but again, very visually appealing, hero image here, pretty brief copy, even though it's selling their story here, and then learn more. Again, you can see above the fold right here. And then for this one, this was more of an educational, email, but you can see what the design looks like generally. And, these are super solid. So if you're looking at your account and your designs don't look this high quality, then there's, a good chance that there's some room for optimizations. So there you have it. There is a super easy checklist and a simple way to do a detailed Klaviyo account audit and make sure that your strategy is up to par and as optimized as it can be. So now that you know what to do with your email lists and segments, what to look for, what flows to look for to make sure that you have set up, and what your email campaigns should look like, you can actually come up with your own plan when you see kind of your own shortcomings within your own Klaviyo account. And you can start to optimize your strategy. So I strongly recommend using Gamma, which is actually the tool that I'm using to show you this on this video, or Notion to kind of write out all your strategies and shortcomings. And I think that you should also take screenshots of your Klaviyo account and actually put them into Gamma so you can see exactly what you're doing wrong and come up with a plan on how to fix it. So yeah, feel free. I'm going to give you this link to this actual document so that you can use it as a checklist and go through and do your own audit. I strongly recommend that everyone that has a Klaviyo account uses this document as a checklist, goes through your account and checks to make sure that you have all of this set up, because this is what we've been seeing that is successful for our e-com clients and getting them to 30 to 40% of their overall revenue from email. So go through on your account, use this as a checklist, do your own audits. And if after that audit, you feel like you kind of don't know which next steps to take, or if you don't have time to do this audit, what I'm going to do is actually put a link in the description to our website because we do these audits every single day. And if you'd like to have a free one done for your Klaviyo account or whatever email service provider you have, you can go ahead and book a call down below, and we will have a detailed audit just like this written specifically for your brand within the day. And we will also put together, a detailed plan on how to optimize your email marketing strategy. So if you want to do that, go in the description, book a call on our website, and I'd be happy to do that for you. And other than that, I really appreciate you guys watching. Hope you found this valuable, and thank you.